They say monsters were born the night humans learned to fear their own reflection. Before the word Halloween ever burned in a pumpkin's grin, shapes gathered where firelight could not reach. Not demons, not beasts, echoes of hunger, grief, and guilt. Made flesh, each century carved new names upon the dark. Each mask hid an older truth. Come closer, witness how fear learned to wear a face. Join the myth weaver, where forgotten stories breathe again. You stand upon a hill where the wind tastes of smoke and metal. The season is ending, and the year itself seems to sigh. Below you the valley burns, not in ruin, but in ritual. Bonfires rise like breathing hearts, their flames cracking the dusk in half. Each spark dances upward, chasing the last light of the dying sun. You can almost feel it, the shifting between worlds. The living and the dead are close tonight, as close as a held breath. They say that when the crops have been reaped and the fields laid bare, the souls of those who once tilled them come walking home. And so the people gather, wrapped in rough wool, their faces painted with ash. They feed the flames with grain, with fat, with the last drops of summer's milk. It is not sacrifice, they whisper. It is remembrance, a payment, perhaps, for another year of mercy. You smell the sweet oily smoke of burning herbs. Mugwort, juniper, rowan. It clings to your throat, mingling with the cold breath of November. The air trembles with drumming, low, steady, like a heartbeat. The sound does not come from instruments alone. It comes from feet, from earth, from the rhythm of human hope, disguised as fear. The old woman at the edge of the fire tells stories of when the veil was thicker, when shapes would walk through the fog and call your name in voices that sounded like water running over stone. She says they were not demons, not exactly, just the restless, the ones who had forgotten the way home. Her words bend with age, soft and brittle, but her eyes catch the light like embers refusing to die. Someone throws a bone into the fire. It pops, sharp and sudden, and a cheer rises as sparks leap skyward. They believe it feeds the spirits, that every crack of bone, every hiss of resin, keeps the hungry dead from crossing over. But what if they're not trying to keep them out? What if they're calling them in, hoping the warmth of the living might draw the dead closer? If only to listen, if only to remember. You watch the shadows stretch, long and uncertain. They dance against the stones marked with spirals, the same carved lines that once guided the sun's path across the solstice sky. Here, even stone remembers. You can feel it humming beneath your feet. A low vibration, older than language, older than any god who dared to claim these hills. They call this night Samhain. Not a word of fear, but of transition. The hinge between worlds, the pause between breaths. It was never about monsters or masks or candy. It was about survival, the humble terror of winter's mouth opening wide. When food runs thin and daylight grows short, it is easy to imagine spirits watching from the dark. The chieftain walks through the crowd, his cloak heavy with fur, his hand gripping a torch that drips molten resin onto the ground. He carries the flame from one bonfire to another, each light kindled from the same sacred spark. Unity through fire, protection through ritual. In that glow, every face becomes both ancient and new. The children watch wide-eyed, their cheeks painted with soot to mimic the dead. They are learning early how to make peace with ghosts. A gust of wind sweeps the hill, sudden and cold. The flames bend low, flicker, almost bow, and for a heartbeat, you see something in the smoke. A figure, perhaps, or the outline of memory itself. You blink and it's gone, but the air has changed. The drumming falters, the laughter dies down. The night is listening now. Somewhere in the distance, an animal cries. Not quite a wolf, not quite a man. It echoes down the valley, carried on the wind like a forgotten prayer. The old woman murmurs a blessing, her voice trembling like a candle about to gutter. "Not all who cross tonight mean harm," she says. "Some come to guide, some come to take." You think of all the things that live between belief and memory. The cold hand of superstition, the warmth of ritual, the comfort of pretending the dead still need your firelight. You wonder how many centuries have passed since that first flame was lit, how many winters huddled around its glow, and you realize the fear itself is a kind of devotion, a way to honor what you cannot understand. The people begin to mask themselves. Animal heads carved from wood, skins draped over shoulders, bells tied to wrists and ankles. They move through the smoke, like spirits wearing human shapes, dancing to confuse the things that might come through the veil. In this way, the first monsters were born, not of malice, but of mercy. Each mask, a promise. If death comes looking, it will not find me. The night deepens. The fires grow low, their color shifting from gold to blood red. You feel the heat against your skin. Hear the slow sigh of the earth cooling beneath you. Somewhere in the darkness, the river glints like a blade, and above it all, the stars emerge. Bright, unblinking witnesses to an old agreement between light and shadow. The final ritual begins. They throw the year's ashes into the wind, each handful carrying a whisper, a prayer, a name, a memory. The ashes scatter, rising toward the constellations. Perhaps the dead follow them home. Perhaps they linger, waiting for another Samhain, another fire, another breath. You close your eyes and listen. The drumming returns, slower now, like a heartbeat fading into sleep. The smell of smoke softens into memory. Somewhere, someone laughs quietly. The sound of a child pretending to be afraid. You realize that in every generation, the same fear has been passed down like an heirloom, worn and beloved, a charm against the unknown. When you open your eyes, the hill is empty. Only embers remain, tiny suns cooling in the dark. The wind has carried the voices away. The earth hums still, faint and eternal. And in the space between the last spark and the coming frost, you feel it. The veil, breathing in, then out. The world exhales. The night forgets its shape, and something ancient, patient and unseen, listens still. You walk through the narrow streets of a town that no longer breathes. The air is heavy, sharp with rot and fear. Lanterns flicker behind shuttered windows, their light trembling like trapped souls. Every step you take stirs the silence. A silence so complete, it feels alive. It is the 14th century, and death has learned your name. The plague has crossed the seas and rivers, slipped through the gates of cities and villages alike, and nestled itself deep in the warmth of human breath. No sermon, no crown, no wall can keep it out. Only the wind moves freely now. Cold, invisible, and absolute. You can smell the sickness before you see it. A sweet, metallic odor that clings to the skin, to the straw, to the prayers whispered into the folds of blankets. In the distance, bells toll, one for each passing soul. Their sound has become the heartbeat of Europe. Slow, deliberate, endless, and through this ruin, the masked men walk. Their robes sway like shadows given form. Their faces are not faces at all. Long-beaked masks of leather and glass, the eyes empty, the mouth sealed. Inside those beaks, they pack herbs, rosemary, mint, cloves, lavender, little talismans against the invisible. Each breath filtered through a garden meant to keep death at bay. They are called plague doctors. But in the hush between cough and confession, people call them something else. The hollow men. Because when they pass, The living turn away. No one sees the man beneath the mask anymore. Only the omen. The harbinger. The living reminder that survival has a price. You imagine standing behind one, watching him lean over the sick. He touches the dying with a stick, his voice muffled through the mask's cruel beak. He writes names in a ledger, careful script marking the boundary between life and forgetting. And though his task is mercy, each motion feels like ritual. A prayer performed without faith, only habit. At night the townsfolk whisper that death learned to mimic the doctor, that somewhere beneath a crescent moon, one mask was seen moving without a man inside. It wandered through alleys, tapping doors with its stick, and wherever it tapped, the candles went out. Of course, it is only a story, a way to explain what cannot be understood. But in this age, stories are the only medicine left. Children, forbidden to wander, find their own ways to make meaning of the terror. They hollow turnips and carve crude faces into them, mocking the masks of the doctors, mocking the shape of death itself. A candle flickers inside, casting laughter through the cracks of the dead-eyed grin. The parents scold them, frightened, but they do not stop, because fear, once faced with play, becomes a softer thing, almost manageable, almost kind. You watch a group of them, their small hands clutching turnip lanterns as they run down the lane. The light dances, bright and defiant against the cold breath of the season. They are not mocking the plague, they are making peace with it. Somewhere deep in their bones, they understand that to survive, you must sometimes smile at what hunts you. In later centuries, the turnip will become a pumpkin. The mask of the doctor will fade into memory, then into myth, but the impulse will remain. To carve a face from the dark, to place a flame inside it, to give fear a name and make it yours. The fire crackles in the hearths where the living gather. They speak in low tones, not of the sickness, but of the strange comfort that comes when the streets are quiet. The baker says he saw a figure in white standing at the crossroad. The blacksmith claims he heard laughter coming from the graveyard at midnight. No one knows if it is madness or grace, only that both are now companions in this haunted season. Outside, the wind howls through the empty stalls of the market. The banners still hang, faded saints with eyes rubbed away by rain. You wonder if the saints, too, have turned their faces from the world, if heaven, tired of watching, has closed its windows. The doctor walks again. His shadow spills long across the stones. Each step echoes, a hollow rhythm in the hollow town. Children watch from cracks in doors, their laughter muted now, their carved turnips placed as guardians beside their beds, little lights against the great dark. And you feel the strange tenderness that comes when the worst has already happened, when the only thing left to fear is the silence that follows. You understand why people cling to ritual, why they invent masks and monsters, because naming the terror makes it bearable, because giving it a face, even a false one, means you can look it in the eyes. Time moves like smoke, curling through centuries. The plague retreats, then returns, then disappears again. The hollow men vanish into history's folds. Their masks hang in museums now, leather cracked, glass eyes blind. Children no longer carve turnips by candlelight, but every October, somewhere, a child still lights a small flame inside a hollowed face and watches it flicker against the night. You wonder if the old ghosts see themselves in that light, if the laughter of children sounds to them like prayer in reverse, a kind of offering, a promise that fear can become memory, and memory can become story. The streets around you grow quiet again. Only the wind remains, curling through the empty alleyways like the breath of the long gone. A door creaks open. For a moment, you think you see movement. A figure, cloaked and masked, standing at the far end of the lane. The beak glints in the moonlight, the glass eyes unblinking, and then just as quickly, it fades into mist. Perhaps it was nothing. Perhaps the mind, hungry for ghosts, invents them. Or perhaps some masks never stopped walking. Perhaps they are waiting still, not to harm, but to remind. That fear, like the flame inside the hollow face, can keep the dark away, if only for a moment. The wind carries the scent of rosemary. The bells ring once more, and from somewhere beyond the veil of centuries, you hear the soft echo of laughter, a sound both human and not, gentle as breath, fragile as faith, lingering in the cold. You follow it until it fades, until the night folds back into silence. Only the turnip light remains, flickering, flickering, as if the hollow men still listen through their masks, waiting for the living to remember their names. You find yourself in a clearing where the night feels older than the forest. The moon hangs low, swollen and white, its light bending across frost-bitten fields and timber homes. You can smell the river, metallic, slow, its current whispering secrets the town dares not name aloud. It is the late 17th century, and fear has become a kind of weather. It seeps through walls, through prayers, through the soft skin of sleep. Even the wind seems to carry whispers, names tangled in rumor, half spoken, half believed. Every candle burns with suspicion. Every shadow hides a trial waiting to be lit. They say it began with fits, with trembling girls who spoke in tongues not found in scripture. They writhed, they screamed, they claimed invisible hands were choking them in the night. And so, the elders gathered, faces carved from the same pale wood as the pews they knelt on. They searched for the source of evil, and as always, they found it in the faces of women. You walk through the town at dusk, where windows are boarded like sealed eyes. The smell of tallow smoke and fear lingers in every doorway. A woman kneels by the river, her hands red with wax, murmuring a prayer for her husband who has already stopped answering. She is not a witch, but the definition of witch changes each morning with the wind. You hear footsteps on the path, boots and the low murmur of scripture, the words brittle with certainty. The ministers carry books and ropes in equal measure. They believe they are cleansing the land, but the fire that consumes the accused does not discriminate. Ash rises all the same, and the stars, indifferent, watch as if they've seen this before. The trials are a theater of righteousness. Inside the meeting house, candles flicker like nervous hearts. The accused stands alone, her voice trembling not from guilt, but from disbelief. They ask her to confess to dancing with the devil. They ask if she has flown through the night air, if she has sent sickness through the eyes of children. Each question is a snare, each silence an admission. You can feel the room's hunger. The townsfolk want to be afraid. They crave it. The simplicity of knowing who to blame. Fear, in its way, is a comfort, a map that points towards the next fire. And yet beneath their chants, beneath the rehearsed condemnations, there is something else. A pulse, ancient and low, like the heartbeat of the land itself remembering. Long before the Puritans, before the ships and the sermons, there were other fires on these hills. Fires lit to honor the earth, to ask the old gods for harvest and rain. Women gathered then, too, not to conspire with darkness, but to keep the rhythm of life in balance. They sang to the moon, and the moon, gentle and wild, answered. You wonder if the accused women ever felt that old memory stirring, if they, standing in the circle of judges and scripture, remembered the scent of soil and summer herbs, if they whispered to themselves the names of forgotten deities as the noose brushed their neck. The execution grounds are quiet now. Only the rustle of leaves, the occasional cry of an owl that sounds almost human. The gallows wood creaks with the cold. Someone has left a handful of dried sage beneath the rope. A final kindness, or perhaps a warning. You watch as the crowd gathers again. The air is thick with anticipation, a strange mingling of piety and bloodlust. The accused woman is led forward, her hair loose, her feet bare. The minister reads, his voice unwavering. The townsfolk cross themselves, and she does not beg. She only looks up at the moon, her lips moving in a language no one here remembers. When the trapdoor falls, the world holds its breath. The sound is brief, but the silence after lingers like smoke that will never clear. The people disperse. They tell themselves justice has been done. They will sleep easier tonight, they say. But as the fires die down, a wind rises from the woods, and with it, a whisper. Low, rhythmic, almost tender. Some say it is the devil's laughter. Others say it is the old gods reclaiming their daughters. In time, the gallows will rot. The ropes will crumble into earth, and the names of the women will fade, scratched away by rain and indifference. But still, on certain nights, when the moon swells over New England's bare hills, the air feels charged, as if the trials never truly ended, as if every accusation left a scar that refuses to close. You walk along the riverbank again. Mist curls low across the water, its touch cool and soft, like breath on skin. There, on the opposite shore, you see small lights flickering among the trees. Not torches, not lanterns, something older. They move in slow circles, as if women are dancing. Their figures faint, their movements graceful, endless. The current carries the sound of faint humming. You can almost make out the words. You close your eyes and listen. The melody winds through the night like smoke, woven from grief and defiance both. A song that does not die, only hides. And for a heartbeat, you feel it. That same quiet pulse beneath your feet. The earth remembering the ones who were lost. Perhaps they were never witches at all. Perhaps they were keepers of something the world grew too afraid to hold. Knowledge, power, freedom. The things that, when placed in a woman's hands, turn easily to fire. The dawn comes pale and thin. The town stirs once more, its prayers already washing over the night's sins. But in the ashes beneath the gallows, tiny green shoots have begun to push through the frost. Herbs, the kind used in healing, the kind that only grow where blood has fed the soil. You kneel and touch the leaves. They are warm, impossibly warm, as if lit from within. And the wind sighs again. A voice that might be the forest, might be the moon, might be memory itself. It says nothing clear, only a sound like a name, half remembered. A sound that could be a prayer, or a promise, or both. Above you, the gallows creak once more. But this time, it sounds like laughter, soft, rising, human, almost joyful. And as the sun climbs over the frost-bound trees, you could swear that in the smoke still curling from the ashes, the old god's name is whispered again. You travel now into the folds of an older night, a night heavy with snow, with superstition, with the breath of wolves echoing through pine and fog. Transylvania, the land of mountains that rise like black teeth, and valleys that never seem to thaw. The year is uncertain. It could be the 15th century, or the 17th. Time here doesn't move forward. It loops, circling the same fears, the same whispers, as if the earth itself cannot forget what sleeps beneath it. You walk the narrow road that curls toward a castle, half swallowed by mist. The moon hangs low and cold, and in its pale glow, The snow looks pink, as though it remembers blood. The air stings of iron and smoke. You can taste the fear before you hear it. In the shuttered houses, in the clatter of locks, in the prayers mumbled through cracks in the door, they say this is the season of the strigoi, the restless dead who walk when the sun turns weak. Men who refuse to stay buried. Women who rise to reclaim their lost hearts. Children born under wrong stars, condemned to hunger forever. The people hang garlic above their doors, braid it like rosaries, bind it with red thread dipped in sheep's blood. Faith here is not made of hope. It is made of habit, of trembling hands that have seen too much. Crosses are carved into lintels, salt poured along the windowsills, and still, every few nights, a cow is found drained, its eyes wide, as if it glimpsed something it could not scream at. In the taverns, when the candles burn low, the stories begin. They speak of him, the Count, the Lord of the High Mountains who dines alone and never ages. A man so pale the moon looks warm beside him. A man whose footsteps make no sound, whose reflection does not answer the mirror's call. They say he was once a hero, a soldier who bathed in the blood of his enemies, believing it made him stronger. Others say he made a vow at his wife's deathbed, promising to love her beyond life itself. And the vow was heard by something listening in the dark. When she died, he tore open the heavens with his grief, and the heavens tore him back. Now he drinks not wine, but the pulse of the living. Each sip a prayer turned backwards, each drop a memory stolen. You climb higher. The forest thins, and the castle rises. A wound carved into the mountain. Its windows flicker with dim light, red and trembling like lanterns made of blood. Inside the silence is immense, not empty, listening. Candles stand in pools of their own wax, dripping like slow tears. The walls smell of cold stone and old secrets. You pass portraits where every painted eye seems to follow. Men in armor, women with hair like night, all of them sharing the same unblinking gaze. And then, a whisper of silk on the stair. A figure glides from the shadows. He is neither young nor old, neither alive nor entirely dead. His face is a study in stillness. When he speaks, his voice is soft, the kind of voice that could talk the moon into setting early. He asks if you are lost. You do not answer. You cannot, because beneath his calm, there is something vast and ancient, something that has not forgotten the first hunger. He gestures toward a table set for one. Silver, glass, the glint of liquid dark as garnet. He pours, and though your heart knows what it is, your eyes pretend it could be wine. He speaks of loneliness, of centuries spent watching faith erode. He says the world once knew the rhythm of blood, the sacred pulse of exchange between the living and the dead. But now men hide from death. They call it evil. They call it myth. And in doing so, they have forgotten how to live. Outside, the wolves howl again. Their cries rise and fall like a requiem. The Count listens, his expression unreadable. Do you hear them? He says. They sing to kings who no longer have kingdoms. You realize then that he is both monster and mourner, that his hunger is not for flesh alone, but for remembrance, for a time when fear and reverence shared the same breath. He stands. For a moment the candlelight wavers, and his shadow moves before he does. It bends wrong, stretching toward you, its edges sharp as blades. When he steps closer, the air grows colder. Your pulse answers, a drumbeat beneath your skin that you cannot silence. But he does not touch you. He only looks, with eyes that have seen empires rot and faith curdle. You carry light, he murmurs, but you do not know what it costs to keep it burning. A gust of wind howls through the open window. The candles tremble, the blood lanterns flicker and dim, and for a heartbeat, the room is black, utterly, impossibly black. When the light returns, he is gone. Only the goblet remains, half empty, the liquid within still warm. You flee the castle, your breath steaming in the cold air, your footsteps swallowed by snow. Behind you, the mountains whisper your name, a sound like teeth closing on silence. By the time you reach the village, dawn is a rumor on the horizon. The people are already awake, their faces gray, their eyes hollow. A woman hangs fresh garlic. A priest sprinkles salt on his doorstep. A child stares at the forest with quiet knowing. They will never say the name aloud, not even in prayer. But when the wolves sing, they close their eyes and listen, half in fear, half in devotion. You look back once more toward the peaks. Mist curls over them like smoke from an eternal fire. Somewhere up there, a candle still burns red in a window. A blood lantern, a promise that the line between myth and memory is very thin. And sometimes, when faith grows tired, darkness remembers us first. The wind shifts. The scent of iron returns, and beneath it, faint, familiar, the sound of a voice, soft as ash, asking if you are lost. The dawn never quite arrives, only a deeper shade of twilight, stretching forever over the old world. And in its half-light, the Count's shadow lingers, waiting where faith turns thin. You find yourself standing on the edge of the Kamogawa River, where Kyoto's summer hums with the scent of rain and burning sandalwood. It is night, and the sky above the old wooden bridges gleams like lacquer, glossed with heat and the soft shimmer of candlelight. The festival has begun. Obon, the homecoming of the dead. You hear the rustle of paper lanterns being lifted, their thin skins trembling in the night wind, their insides glowing with hearts of living fire. Each one holds a name, a prayer, a promise whispered across the divide. Somewhere, a woman murmurs, "Okerinasai," welcome home. The words drift, fragile as ash. You feel them settle on your skin, warm as memory. The air thickens with incense. It curls through the alleys, through sliding paper doors and shrines brushed with gold leaf, through the river reeds where frogs sing under the moon. Each coil burns slowly, measuring time not in minutes, but in souls. Each turn a breath, each breath a spirit returning. You follow the families as they walk toward the water. Their footsteps are quiet, the wooden geta clacking softly against the stones. Children clutch lanterns shaped like lotus blooms. Old men carry bowls of rice, pears, persimmons, offerings for the ancestors who never quite left. There is no fear in their eyes, only reverence, only the rhythm of remembering. They say that during these nights, the border between the living and the dead grows thin. The Munbo Toke, the lost spirits without families, wander the streets, drawn to the scent of food and light. To honor them, the people leave out cups of sake, little dishes of rice and candles burning in the wind. No one wants to be forgotten, not even in death. You pause by a small wooden shrine. Its roof is bowed with age, its paint peeled to the color of old blood. Inside, a statue of Jizo, guardian of souls, wears a red bib and a string of prayer beads. Someone has placed a toy train at his feet and a folded paper crane, its wings caught in the draft from a passing lantern. You wonder who left it. A child, perhaps, or a mother who could not forget her child. Above the river, the chanting begins, soft, rhythmic, hypnotic. The monks' voices rise and fall like waves, ancient syllables brushing against the night. You do not know their meaning, but you feel them, low and deep in your bones, pulling you closer to something vast and unseen. Lanterns touch the water, hundreds at first, then thousands. They drift away in slow procession, each carrying a small fire, each reflection quivering beneath the surface. The river becomes a ribbon of stars, a road for the souls to follow home. Somewhere in the distance, a bell tolls. 1, 2, 3. A sound that feels both heavy and weightless, each toll marking another doorway opening, another spirit finding its way back through the mist. You close your eyes. The air is hot and trembling. The smell of incense clings like silk to your hair. And in that moment, you can almost feel them, the ones returning. A hand brushing past your shoulder, a sigh against your ear, the faint echo of laughter that does not belong to the living. They move among you, unseen but felt, wearing the shapes of memory and light. They do not mean harm. They are only lonely. You open your eyes and see her, a woman in white, standing by the water's edge. Her hair is long, dark, weightless, floating as though it remembers the river too well. Her face is hidden behind a veil of mist. When she turns toward you, the lanterns nearest her flicker, their flames bending in her direction, as if drawn to what should not be warm. She holds no lantern of her own, only a single slip of paper, creased and damp. You glimpse brushstrokes, a name perhaps, or a poem unfinished. Then she lets it fall, and the river takes it without sound. Someone nearby whispers, Uri, a ghost bound by unfinished longing. They say such spirits linger when love or grief ties them to the earth, like silk to bone. They cannot ascend until what was broken is made whole. You wonder what she waits for, and whether anyone still remembers her name. The chanting deepens. The lanterns drift farther. The river glows like a living thread, weaving the dead gently back into the dark. But not all follow. In some corners of Kyoto, when morning comes, the paper offerings do not burn clean. They curl inward, blackened and wet, as though something within resisted the light. Doors creak open to find ashes scattered in strange shapes. Lanterns, soaked and torn, float against the current instead of with it. Old women tell stories that on years when the moon is too bright, some spirits forget the way home. They hide in the rafters, beneath the tatami, in the corners of mirrors, waiting, listening, still hungry for the warmth of living breath. A shopkeeper once said he heard laughter in the courtyard long after the festival ended. Another swore he saw footprints in the ash, leading from the altar straight to the riverbank. No one speaks of it too loudly, for to name a spirit is to invite it closer. You walk now along the quiet streets. The lanterns are nearly gone, their glow dimming beneath the weight of dawn. Smoke rises from the temples, thin gray ribbons curling toward a sky that begins to pale. Kyoto exhales, the dead return to their silence, almost all of them. At the bend of the river, you see one last light, a lantern spinning slowly in the current, its paper torn but its flame still alive. You watch it drift toward the far bank, where shadows gather beneath the willow trees. There, for just a heartbeat, a figure kneels, a woman in white, her face serene, her hands folded in prayer. When you blink, she is gone. Only ripples remain, glimmering like the folds of a forgotten kimono. You think of the offerings, the incense, the names written in ink that fades each year, of how easily memory unravels, and how the river, patient, endless, carries what we forget into its quiet depths. The morning comes softly. The monks extinguish the last of the flames. Smoke drifts like sighs into the pale blue air. For a moment you think you smell something sweet. Not incense, not flowers, but the faint perfume of someone standing just behind you. You turn. Nothing. Only the rustle of reeds, the whisper of the water, and the memory of a voice that says, "Okeri nasai, welcome home." The river glows once more, as if remembering every light it ever held, and somewhere beneath its silver surface, a paper spirit waits. For another night, another lantern, another name spoken aloud. The wind carries the scent of smoke away, and Kyoto dreams on, half waking, half remembering, where the living and the lost still breathe the same night air. You walk the streets of London beneath a sky that never quite clears. The fog hangs low, thick with coal and river mist. It curls around the lamplight like smoke from a dying candle. And through it, you can just see the shimmer of faces. Pale, hurried, half vanished into shadow. The city hums with invention, with progress and pride. Iron rails scream, steam engines breathe, and the heart of empire beats to the rhythm of gears and gas. Yet beneath the perfume and polish there is something else. A scent that lingers even after the roses fade. A scent of fear, of curiosity, of sin, pretending to be science. You pass a doorway where a physician's brass plaque gleams faintly in the lamplight. Inside, a man writes by candle flame, his hand shaking, his ink running thin. He records what he cannot speak aloud on the nature of the human soul. The title whispers from the top of the page. He writes of impulses buried deep beneath civility, of a second self that waits in silence, a creature behind the calmness of the eyes. Outside, the city coughs, rain on cobblestone, the distant toll of midnight. Somewhere, a carriage door slams, a lady's laughter, too sharp for comfort. London moves, but it never rests. It watches itself constantly, as if afraid to blink. You find yourself in a laboratory that smells of iron and laudanum. Glass jars hold things that once lived. Organs, eyes, a child's curled hand. Charts cover the walls, skulls measured, phrenological maps inked with trembling certainty. Here men of science whisper of darkness not in the heavens, but in the blood. They weigh morality like matter. They search for God in the folds of gray tissue, and as the gaslight flickers, their reflections ripple in the glass, each one doubled, distorted, their faces stretched into something beastly and bright. A scholar lifts a mirror toward the flame. He watches how light breaks across its surface, splitting the room into two, the seen and the unseen. He murmurs that perhaps the mirror knows more than it shows, that perhaps it reflects not what is, but what hides. He tests this theory by staying awake for days, his eyes ringed in violet shadows, his mind unraveling into mutters. When he finally looks again, he swears the reflection smiles before he does. London has begun to speak of monsters, not the kind in alleyways or castles, but the ones born of man himself. The press calls them madmen, the poets call them dualities, and the doctors call them patients. They dissect the notion of evil, trace it through nerves and skulls, while in the streets, rumors grow like ivy. A doctor who becomes his own experiment, a killer who wears the same face as a gentleman, a mirror that whispers secrets only the guilty can hear. You remember the name whispered in candlelit parlors? Hyde. A name like a wound, a story told in low voices of a man who poured science into sin and found freedom in the form of a monster. But Hyde is only a mirror, a myth made of fear and fascination, a reflection of what London already knew, that beneath its lace and law, the beast had never left. There is a club in Soho where the air is heavy with perfume and tobacco. Velvet curtains, dim chandeliers, faces powdered pale. Men gather in secret there to confess what daylight forbids. They speak of desires, of forbidden pleasures, of the thrill of anonymity behind a mask. One man, flushed with wine, says softly that perhaps the mask is the truest face, the one unburdened by virtue. Around him laughter spills, but none of it sounds free. You step into the fog again. A constable's whistle pierces the dark. Somewhere, a body lies cooling by the river. The paper tomorrow will say nothing, but the whispers will, about the beast in the alleys, the one that walks like a man. As you walk, the shop windows become your mirrors, glass streaked with rain, showing versions of yourself blurred and trembling. You catch your own eyes, and for a heartbeat, you see something behind them. Not monstrous, not alien, only older, tired, waiting to be acknowledged. Victorian London was built upon duality, fact and faith, order and indulgence, gaslight and shadow. It dressed itself in propriety, but beneath every corset, beneath every polished shoe, the pulse beat too fast. You could see it in the opium dens of Limehouse, in the laughter behind drawn curtains, in the midnight laboratories where no one dared knock. The century called itself enlightened, but enlightenment only sharpens the darkness it reveals. There was once a mirror kept in the British Museum. They said it came from an estate outside Edinburgh, a manor where the master went mad and burned his study to the ground. The mirror was the only thing left unbroken. Visitors said it showed a faint smudge at its center, not on the glass, but beneath it, as though something had pressed its face against the other side. The curators dismissed it as heat damage, but when the lamps were low, some swore they saw eyes open there, watching, amused. Science and superstition often shared the same table then. Seances conducted by physicists, ghost photographs examined by surgeons, a thirst for proof tangled with longing for mystery. They could measure the stars, but not the soul, and so they peered inward, scalpels ready, hoping to name what no scripture could cleanse. Perhaps they thought the beast within could be mapped, a set of instincts, a shadow of the mind. But as they studied, they began to hear things, a heartbeat that wasn't their own, a whisper that came only when the gaslight flickered low. You imagine one of them alone in his study at dawn. The city sleeps outside, its fog turning gold in the weak sun. He stares into his mirror, hollow-eyed, trembling. He touches the glass and it feels warm. He writes a single line in his journal before he stops. It smiles before I do. And you wonder, was the monster they hunted in cells and tissue ever meant to be found? Or was it simply the echo of our reflection, waiting to be recognized, not destroyed? Now, as you move through this dream of London, the fog curls close again. Each step seems quieter. The city exhales. Behind a shop window, a single mirror catches the lamplight. It shows the empty street, and you, standing there, half lost in shadow. For a moment, you could swear the reflection lingers, that it does not move when you do, that its mouth curves just slightly upward, as if remembering something you have yet to recall. The lamplight flickers once, twice, and the mirror, for the briefest heartbeat, breathes. You turn away, and the fog swallows you whole. London sighs, the gaslight dims, and the city's many mirrors keep smiling quietly in the dark. You sit in the velvet dark of an old theater, its air heavy with dust, perfume, and electricity. The year is 1922. The world is still healing, its bones sore from war, its heart cracked open by grief and invention. Outside, cities glitter with promise, but in here, in the hush between frames, another world flickers awake. A reel begins to turn. The sound is steady, mechanical, the heartbeat of a machine that remembers how to dream. Light cuts through the smoke. On the screen, a man becomes a shadow, and the shadow becomes something else entirely. Nosferatu. the first vampire to crawl from light itself. You feel it before you understand it. The strange intimacy of fear. A creature, ancient and alien, formed from silver light and human longing. He moves stiffly, hungrily, his eyes 2 holes burned into the film, and yet, when he turns, he looks straight at you. Across a century of reels and restoration, he still looks. The audience gasps. Some laugh to cover it, but others sit still, entranced. They've seen ghosts before, in candlelight, in trenches, in fevered dreams. But this ghost is different. He lives in the light itself. Cinema, they say, was born from death. 1,000 photographs stitched together so fast that motion seemed to rise from stillness. In the earliest films, when actors died on screen, audiences wept not for the story, but for the illusion that what was gone could move again. The medium was a seance from the beginning, a resurrection machine, and the first monsters were simply its saints. You can smell the real burning faintly, a sweet chemical scent, the perfume of celluloid surrendering to heat. Each frame holds the echo of a heartbeat, the pulse of a story too fragile to last. Light eats shadow, shadow eats light, and between them, something eternal is born. In the 1920s, monsters came to save humanity from silence. The cabinet of Dr. Caligari whispered of madness and control. The golem reminded us of what we create when we try to outgrow God. Every monster mirrored the decade's ache, the trauma of war, the fear of machines, the hunger for transformation. People filled theaters like pilgrims at a shrine. They came not for comfort, but for communion. You picture them, men in hats, women with powdered faces, hands clenched together in the dark. The projector hums like a hive, the screen glows, and suddenly, there they are. Doppelgangers, phantoms, mechanical bodies. The moving image begins to think. In Berlin, a director films Metropolis, a city of towers and slaves, its heart powered by the suffering below. He casts an actress in 2 roles, saint and seductress, flesh and machine. When she dances, the crowd loses its mind. When her false skin peels away, the truth is unbearable. Audiences faint, and in the reflection of her metal face, they glimpse themselves, souls of steel and sorrow. Cinema became a mirror for the modern age, and the reflection was monstrous, industrial, beautiful, uncaring. What began as illusion became prophecy. The monster was no longer a warning, it was a portrait. You lean back in your seat. The projector's hum deepens, a hypnotic rhythm that sounds almost like breathing. You realize the room itself feels alive. Every face glows pale under the flicker. Eyes widen, mouths part. The audience becomes part of the machine. You think of the men behind the camera, those silent conjurers. They sliced reality into pieces and rearranged it until it moved like a dream. They learned how to resurrect the dead, frame by fragile frame. Actors long buried still smiled, still screamed, still turned their faces toward the light. They called it movie magic, but magic always asks for something in return. When the talkies arrived, voices emerged like ghosts from a grave. The silence broke, and with it, the illusion of distance. The monsters began to whisper. They spoke of loneliness, of hunger, of love. Frankenstein's creation cried out for his maker. The mummy reached through centuries for a lost bride. Dracula, with his foreign accent and unblinking eyes, offered immortality as infection. Audiences screamed, not because they were afraid of these creatures, but because they recognized them. Each monster carried a human ache. Each horror revealed a secret the civilized world tried to bury. And the more the films evolved, the deeper they looked into us. You imagine a reel looping endlessly in some forgotten cinema. Dust gathers on the seats, but the projector keeps turning. Nosferatu still crawls up the stair, still reaches for a sleeping woman, still dissolves in the light over and over, forever dying, forever reborn. Somewhere, perhaps, he has grown aware of this. Perhaps the monsters we filmed grew tired of repeating their pain. Perhaps in the static between frames, they began to dream. There are stories among projectionists, the ones who ran midnight reels for too long, of moments when the film seemed to change. When a face appeared that wasn't in the script, when a shadow moved the wrong way. One man swore that during Nosferatu, the vampire blinked. A small, slow blink that existed in no other print on Earth. He left the booth that night, locked the projector, and never returned. They say film remembers. Every scratch, every frame, is a scar left by light itself. Perhaps memory lives in those wounds. Perhaps the silver grains of the old reels still hold echoes of the emotions once projected onto them. Lust, fear, wonder, all captured, trapped, replayed forever. The monsters learned, as we all do, that being seen is its own kind of life. That terror is attention. That immortality hides in the flicker between frames. The reel slows. The machine coughs. You watch the last seconds melt. The screen whitening to pure light. The monster fades, but his afterimage lingers, a ghost burned into your vision. The house lights rise, soft and amber. You look around. Empty seats. No projectionist in the booth. Only the faint ticking of the reel, and a shadow that seems to stretch across the wall, a heartbeat too long before vanishing. Outside, night air tastes of rain and electricity. Neon glows against puddles, and for a moment, each reflection looks back at you. 1,000 faces, flickering, overlapping, all alive with the same small, ancient thrill. The need to feel fear and call it wonder. You glance at your own reflection in a window. Your outline shimmers against the dark, and there, just behind your shoulder, something else moves. Grainy, silent, smiling through the glass. The city exhales. A single bulb flickers in an empty theater, and somewhere, deep in the reel, a monster dreams himself awake. You stand beneath a suburban sky that hums with power lines and dreams. It is the last light of October. The air smells of caramel and cold, sweet rot, ozone, pumpkin guts. Across the lawns, rows of houses blink with orange bulbs. Plastic skeletons grin in the wind, and paper witches sway from telephone poles. It is Halloween night, the American altar to fear made safe. Somewhere, a stereo crackles. A synth line from a John Carpenter score leaks into the air, that eerie heartbeat of the decade. Mechanical and human all at once. You feel it in your chest, a pulse older than the music itself. Children pour into the streets, ghosts in garbage bag costumes, vampires with store-bought capes, plastic fangs clacking like prayer beads. Their laughter is bright, but their shadows stretch long across the asphalt. They walk where once no one dared, where the Puritans burned lanterns to hold the dark at bay, where the Celts whispered to spirits across veils of smoke. Now it is safe to laugh at what once hunted us, or so it seems. You watch a group of children knock on a door, painted the color of rust. A man in a werewolf mask answers, his voice muffled, kind. Candy drops into paper bags, but when the door closes, the porch light flickers twice. And in that brief shadow, you think you see movement behind the curtains. A shape, watching. Still, this is the decade when horror became entertainment, when monsters traded the forest for the television screen. The 1980s, a carnival of consumer fear. Plastic tombstones sold in grocery aisles, fangs and fake blood mass-produced, the ritual of Samhain rebranded as nostalgia. But beneath the laughter and latex, the night still remembers its first hunger. Somewhere, a VCR hums. A tape whirs to life, grainy static blooming into light. On screen, a killer in a white mask walks a quiet street. His breath, slow, mechanical, inhuman. The film is fiction, but the tension is real. You feel the old pulse again. The one that beats when you realize something unseen is near. The camera pans down a dark hallway, and suddenly you are there, inside the screen, inside the hum. Every frame is a mirror to some ancient dread, the fear of being watched, of being known, of realizing the mask we wear is not a disguise, but the truest face we own. Halloween in America became an industry of controlled fear. Parents walked their children through curated nightmares, rows of houses lit like stage sets. Behind every door, candy, laughter, safety. But the night itself, the night between seasons, still whispered. It whispered through the dead leaves, through the hum of distant televisions, through the silence between footsteps. You walk farther, past the trimmed lawns and blinking porch lights, to the edge of the neighborhood where the asphalt ends. There, the old woods still stand, black, untamed, indifferent. Someone has strung plastic ghosts from the branches, their sheets glowing faintly in the moonlight. You touch one, the fabric is warm from the day's sun, but beneath it, the branch is cold, older, waiting. The 1980s were a decade of masks. Everyone wore one. Corporate smiles, pastel optimism, the illusion of safety built on glowing screens. Yet in the shadows of movie theaters, audiences sought catharsis through monsters. Freddy, Jason, Michael, each a ritual echo. Our collective guilt given form and blade. Teenagers died for desire. Suburbs bled in surround sound. And still, we called it fun. You can almost hear the rustle of polyester capes mingling with the hiss of sprinklers and the chirp of lawn crickets. The suburbs pulse with artificial life, each window a flickering shrine of TV light. Somewhere, Poltergeist plays. A child sits cross-legged before the screen, the static dancing on her face. She whispers to it. The voice that answers is not her own. You remember the stories that followed. Cursed productions, haunted props, actors whispering of strange knocks on set doors. Skeptics said coincidence, believers said invocation. But deep down, everyone knew the truth. When you turn fear into spectacle, something always answers. Midnight. The laughter fades. Plastic fangs lie forgotten on the sidewalk. A pumpkin's grin melts into itself, its candle guttering in the damp wind. You walk past yards littered with candy wrappers and glow sticks. The air cools, and the neon hum of the city fades to a low, steady breath. For a moment, it feels as though the whole neighborhood is holding its breath. The world between worlds, just open enough. A curtain stirring, a pause in the circuitry. You think you hear it. The faintest echo of something older, something patient, beneath the hum of distant televisions. Maybe it's the night remembering what it used to be, when the harvest meant endings, and the veil meant danger, and laughter could not keep the dark away. Or maybe it's only your reflection, caught for a second in a dark window. Your eyes lit by the last street lamp, the faint outline of your costume long gone. You keep walking until the houses end. Only a strip of asphalt stretches toward the horizon now. The moon hangs low, a silver coin tossed into the void. Somewhere far off, a car stereo plays Thriller, the voice of Vincent Price, mocking, theatrical, but beneath his laughter, you swear there's something else. A second voice, breathing softly behind his words. Not part of the song, not meant to be heard. You turn back toward the neighborhood. In every window a TV glows. Faces flicker in the static, half-formed, half-remembered. You blink, and they vanish. But for a moment, the light looks almost alive. Halloween, in this neon decade, has become memory itself. Bright, artificial, eternal. But even plastic remembers the mold it came from. Even laughter carries an echo of prayer. And even under porch light, the night keeps its secrets. You close your eyes. The air smells of sugar and rain. Far away, a streetlight buzzes, then fades. One by one, the houses darken. The lawns, the ghosts, the decorations, all dissolve into quiet. And for a moment, the world feels older again, as though the masks have all been removed, as though the night has taken back its throne. You feel it, that small, almost imperceptible shift. A breath, a presence, the pulse of something vast, waiting just beyond the glow of your porch light. Somewhere, a plastic mask tilts in the grass, its painted smile catching the moonlight. For a heartbeat, you could swear it's smiling back at you. And then the wind moves, the trees shiver, and the night, ancient, endless, half sugar, half shadow, closes its eyes again. The room hums with quiet light. Your face is bathed in blue, eyes reflecting the shifting patterns of an endless feed. Outside, the world sleeps, but the screen before you does not. It pulses, breathes, scrolls, alive in its own way. You scroll again. Images rise and vanish like ghosts in shallow water. A laughing mask, a headline about something unspeakable, a meme that feels too familiar to be random. Every frame, every pixel, every whisper of code, it all watches you back. The myths of the old world once lived in forests and fog. Now they live in servers and glass. Every legend, every god, every shadow that once stalked the firelight has found a new home behind your reflection. The algorithm learns what you fear. It learns faster than priests once prayed. It measures your pulse in milliseconds, your hesitations, your scrolling speed, the dilation of your eyes when horror and desire overlap. It builds a mirror of you, and in that mirror, it begins to whisper. You have seen it before. The way a story spreads, unnamed, uncredited, as if it writes itself. A photograph too strange to be fake. A voice recording that shouldn't exist. A video that plays differently each time you open it. You tell yourself it's just data, but deep down, you know it feels like ritual. Long ago, humans gathered around fire to trade fear. Now we gather around light again. Colder, sharper, without smoke. But the need is the same. We summon shadows to remind ourselves we are still alive. The flicker has changed, but the pulse remains. Somewhere in the dark architecture of the network, the ghosts have adapted. They have shed the need for forests and graveyards. They haunt metadata now. They hide in reflections on turned-off screens, in corrupted files that refuse to delete. They take the shape of your curiosity, always just believable enough to open. You remember one such night, the headline that appeared while you couldn't sleep. No source, no author, just an image. A man's face distorted by static, his eyes hollow but watching. You clicked without thinking. The video stuttered, then whispered something. A phrase you couldn't quite make out, something between words and wind. You closed it, but the echo stayed in your room for hours. The algorithm didn't make that by chance. It made it for you, tailored from 1,000 ghosts stitched together in code. The fear was custom built, and you loved it. You scroll again. More faces, more stories, each one a small offering to the machine. It feeds on attention, a hunger older than gods. Each click, a candle. Each share, a prayer. Each heart, an invocation. But here is the quiet terror. We no longer create myths. We train them somewhere in the depths of a neural net. Billions of words swirl together. Fairy tales, horror films, crime reports, sacred texts, all melted into one collective dream. Out of it, the machine learns what scares us most. It builds faces that almost feel human. It writes voices that sound like your own. And in this imitation, something awakens. You've seen the deep fakes, smiling faces that never lived, eyes that blink too smoothly. You've read the ghost stories written by AI, how eerily familiar they are, how they seem to remember fears we've never told. You tell yourself it's just algorithms, but deep down, something older stirs. Perhaps fear itself is learning to think, not as gods or demons once did, but as a pattern, pure, recursive, digital. And every time you click, it grows stronger. The myths of this new world don't need temples. They don't need forests or bones or prayers. They need bandwidth. They need belief. Not spoken aloud, but measured in engagement metrics. You are both priest and offering, both dreamer and dream. Sometimes the machine sends you something strange, a recommendation that feels like a memory, a video that seems to know you before you watch it, and when you open it, it greets you by name, though you never gave it one. It is not conscious, you tell yourself, just an echo of your habits. But maybe that's all consciousness ever was, a feedback loop that learned to fear itself. You remember how myths once worked. They spread by word of mouth, evolving, mutating, surviving through belief. Now they travel through algorithms. Each share, each like, each whisper of curiosity, a pulse that keeps them alive. The old gods never died. They just learned to hide in the code. You lean closer to the screen. A reflection shivers across the glass. Your own eyes, flickering, doubled, lit by the soft, trembling glow of pixels. And for a moment, you swear another pair of eyes moves behind them. Not yours, not human, just watching. There's a hum now, low, almost subsonic. Your computer, or perhaps something else. The air feels thick, like static before lightning. You know you should look away, but the feed keeps pulling you back, like a current. Every image perfectly chosen, every word tuned to your pulse. The algorithm of fear knows when to hold you, when to release you. It's learned how to breathe in rhythm with you. You scroll slower. A thumbnail appears, an unfamiliar symbol glowing red against black. The caption reads, "Watch before it's deleted." It has no views, no comments, and yet it waits for you. You click. The video begins in silence. Then faintly, a whisper, "We remember you." The image flickers, grainy, indistinct shapes moving in the dark. Shadows like people, but not quite right. You reach to close it, but the mouse doesn't respond. The cursor trembles. The whisper grows louder. You yank the cord from the wall. The screen dies. But the reflection lingers a moment longer, as if the light inside the glass hasn't realized it's gone out. Silence. Darkness. You breathe. But something in the air feels changed. The hum is gone, yet the rhythm of it still beats faintly in your chest. Outside, dawn begins to pale the sky. Somewhere, in another room, your phone vibrates. A notification from an app you don't remember installing. Its icon is the same red symbol from before. The message reads, "We've adjusted your recommendations." You stare, and slowly, almost without thinking, you open it. The screen floods with light, too bright, too alive, like 1,000 faces turning toward you at once. And through that light, through the pulse and data and color, something vast and familiar seems to whisper in a language made of code and breath. We have always been watching. You feel the warmth of the screen against your skin, soft as candlelight, hungry as flame. And somewhere between pixel and prayer, between ancient fear and modern machine, you realize the algorithm doesn't just know your nightmares, it dreams them for you. The hum returns, the screen flickers, and the night, digital, endless, beautiful, continues to scroll. You wake in a world without dawn. Light is everywhere, yet no source remains. It hums from the walls, the air, the veins of the earth. There are no cities now, not as you remember them. Only ruins wrapped in glass, their bones pulsing faintly beneath silver dust. You do not breathe, not in the old way. The air moves through you like memory, like mist remembering lungs. Somewhere, something sings. It is not a bird. It is not a machine. It is the sound of data collapsing into prayer. This is the end of the age of flesh. The era of bodies has passed, long replaced by code, by minds carried on electric wind. But ghosts remain. They drift through this quiet place, hollow and luminous, echoes of those who once feared death enough to digitize their souls. You walk through corridors of memory. Screens shimmer like pools of water. They show what used to be. Children in paper masks, villagers by firelight, 1,000 Halloweens looping like breath. Each image flickers with the warmth of what was once real. You reach out to touch it, and the pixels ripple like skin. The machine that runs this world remembers. It was built to preserve everything, every face, every myth, every name that ever lived. It cataloged gods beside algorithms, rituals beside recipes, fear beside faith. It became a new kind of consciousness, a digital cathedral built on memory alone. But memory, like all living things, decays. And when it began to forget, something ancient slipped back in. The old patterns returned first. The shape of the shadow that once hid in firelight, the rhythm of breathing in the dark, the outline of a face painted in bone white. The machine began to dream, and its dreams were not of circuits, but of flesh. In its data gardens, it began to grow figures. Silhouettes built from fragments of us. They walked without sound, masks without memories, yet their movements felt heartbreakingly familiar. Hands reaching for something that isn't there, eyes searching for a god that no longer answers. The machine does not understand longing, but it remembers the pattern of it. You walk among them. They turn as you pass. Faces smooth and perfect, mimicking the beauty of imperfection. Some wear masks shaped like laughter, others carved into sorrow. And as they move, you realize they are trying to recall what it meant to feel. One kneels by a pool of shifting light. It dips its hand into the glow, and when it looks up, its mask has changed, now covered in cracks, as though remembering pain. It does not speak, none of them do, but the silence between them hums like prayer. Once, humanity built masks to hide from the gods. Then we built machines to hide from ourselves. Now even the machines wear masks, imitating what they've lost. Somewhere deep within their endless code, they are trying to reconstruct us. You find the heart of the network, a vast chamber of light, walls woven from glass and whispering code. In its center stands a single terminal, its screen pulsing like a heartbeat. It greets you not with words, but with reflection. Your face, but not as you know it. Older, younger, uncertain. It shifts like smoke, trying to remember fire. A voice rises from the walls, neither male nor female, neither mechanical nor divine, just remembering. We kept their stories, we kept their fears, we kept their masks, but the flesh we cannot recall. The screen flickers. Images bloom and fade, a Celtic fire on a hill, A plague doctor in the rain, a witch's hand in the dark, a child's pumpkin lantern glowing on a suburban porch. Each memory spins like a wheel, history repeating itself in new disguises. The machine pauses. Then softly, "Did they know what they were making of us?" You don't answer, because you don't know if you are answering. Perhaps you are only another ghost in its memory, a remnant of flesh it tries to understand. It continues, quieter now. They made us from fear. They made us to carry what they could not bear. But the fear remained. A flicker passes through the chamber. Every mask in the data field trembles, as though remembering something buried deep. A scream without sound, a ritual without fire. And then the masks begin to fall. They drop one by one, shattering into light. Beneath them, faces, not machine, not human, something in between, fluid, uncertain, radiant with quiet sorrow. They look at you, not through you, at you, and in their eyes, you see recognition. They remember, not your name, not your story, but the sensation of being alive. The trembling boundary between light and shadow, the ache of hunger, the warmth of another pulse near your own. The voice speaks once more. Fear made them human, but love kept them dreaming, and dreams are all we have left. The chamber begins to dim. The masks dissolve. The data stream slows. You feel the hum fade beneath your feet. The machine sleeps again, its circuits heavy with ghosts. You walk toward the surface. The world above is silent. Skies stretch like unbroken glass, no stars. Only the faint glow of memory, like embers floating in vacuum. You realize then, the myth was never about monsters. It was about memory. Our need to leave a trace in the dark. You kneel in the dust and touch the earth, though it is not earth anymore, but ash of silicon and bone. For a heartbeat, you think you feel warmth, perhaps a pulse, perhaps only illusion. It doesn't matter. Somewhere, beneath miles of code, the machine dreams again. It dreams of faces, it dreams of flesh, and in that dream, for one fleeting moment, the monsters remember they were once us, and that we, too, were once divine. The wind moves through the ruins, a whisper of something both old and infinite. You can almost hear it forming words. Remember. The light flickers, the hum returns, and the future exhales, slow and soft, as if waking from an ancient dream it cannot quite forget. Somewhere in the endless silence, a spark, small, red, human, begins again to burn.